Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nurlidana Bitri Zamri. So, today we will present about seasoning method in wood. As we all know, that after the tree are harvested, the weight of the water in the wood is often greater than the wood itself. To make it usable, we need to remove the water. So, this process is called as wood seasoning or wood drying. So, wood seasoning is the process of drying timber to remove the bound moisture contained in the in the cell wall of the wood cell to produce seasoned timber. Well-seasoned timber has 15% of moisture content and it has a superior dimensionally stability than unseasoned wood, and it is less prone to warping and splitting in serving. As I said earlier, when we season the wood, it has a superior dimensionally stability, which means the strength, the durability, and the elasticity are improved. Other than that, it will reduce the chance of decay and it will improve the load-bearing properties and it will reduce the weight. At the same time, it will reduce the shipping costs. Last but not least, it will exhibit more favorable properties like thermal and electrical insulation, glue adhesive capacity, and easy preservative treatment. Well, it can be done by using several types of seasoning method. So there's two main methods to season the wood, which is by natural and by artificial. Natural is using a dry method, and artificial is using kiln and dry. So this is how it looks like for natural air dry method and artificial kiln and dry method.
So next, I want to talk about method of seasoning. We have two main type method of seasoning. First, air drying and kiln drying. Okay, for air drying first, it is the oldest and simple process. The air drying consists essentially of exposing the threshed product to the air in sun or shade. To achieve uniform drying, the grain must be stirred frequently, especially if it is in direct sunlight. It has several advantages such as very low initial cost, reduced cost of drying, and flexible capacity. And the disadvantage, the drying process is slow, particularly for hardwood. It also depends on the weather. And for kiln drying, the process they allow wood to dry to the desired moisture content faster than air drying. So we know kiln drying is the best method after air drying lah. The drying rates can be carefully controlled and defect losses reduced to a minimum. Involve the drying of wood in a chamber where circulation, relative humidity, and temperature can be controlled. Its advantage provide shorter drying time, minimize defect in the wood. Its disadvantage are that the temperature may be monitored and adjusted, and the end product considerably more expensive because the process is need a higher cost, so it can affect the end product. So we go to the next slide. We also have other methods. We choose boiling seasoning, chemical seasoning, and solar drying. Okay, for boiling seasoning, it can be achieved by boiling it in water for 3 or 4 hours. It gives a good result. The boiling or steaming process develop the strength and elasticity of timber, but economically it is of heavy cost. And for chemical seasoning, it is the process which timber is stored in a suitable solution for some time. This process it can affect the strength of the timber. And the last, it is a solar drying. This process of this method offer a compromise between the low energy requirement of air drying and the speed of killing drying. So it just use a low energy, just like air drying, but it has speed just like killing drying. So it also one of the good method, and it is the simple, cheapest and safest way to dry green wood quickly. The next slide, I want to talk about the difference between air drying and kiln drying. Okay, for air drying, it's often used in furniture, fencing, and decking. It is take a longer time, but just using a low cost because this process use nature sunlight and wind. But for kiln drying, it's more often used for furniture, cabinet, and flooring. It just only take a short time, but a bit expensive because this process using a kiln operator. And the last slide about a lumber stacking. So I want to talk about the process air drying stacking and kiln drying stacking. Okay, for air drying stacking, the place is as flat as possible and the ground must be covered with plastic tub or plywood. The base must be out of all railroad ties, concrete block or slab of two sides of a tree on pocket. The place must be level and even with each other. The flatter you get it, the straighter the lumber. And it should have lots of stickers stick handy, and make sure there are stickers at the very ends of all lumber and a sticker is on top of one below. And for kiln drying, it just placed on a hydraulic lift controlled by the stacker crew and elevated to a comfortable working height, and the lumber are mechanically moved onto the lift. The loads is lower a distance equal to the thickness of the board. Stickers are placed and another course of lumber is moved into position. And but in automatic stacker for kiln drying, the sticker are positioned automatically on the course of lumber. That's all for me. Thank you.
We present the topic of sample board and kiln sample. Sample board. The use of sample board is to estimate the progress of drying. Determine the moisture content of the stack is recommended even if kiln drying is not used. These are more accurate than using a moisture meter, especially at high moisture content. If kiln drying is used to complete the drying of the timber, then the sample board are necessary for producing consistently dry timber. The use of sample board is still widespread in hardwood kiln drying. Alternatively, a new method of using inserted electrodes together with moisture meter is becoming popular. Moreover, this newer automatic kiln control scheme still depend on the selection and replacement of kiln sample. Kiln sample is lumber that is dried by kiln method, which combination of temperature and relative humidity at various times or at various moisture content levels during drying. These estimates are made with kiln sample board, which are weighed or otherwise sensed during drying. Kiln samples are usually used in hardwood lumber drying, not in drying softwood dimension lumber, because incorrect kiln condition have more several consequences for hardwood lumber than for softwood lumber. Kiln samples have been weighed manually for moisture content estimate. This manual procedure is used in the majority of hardwood operation, but automated method is beginning to be developed. The same principle of selection and placement apply whether the key sample are monitored manually or automatically. The key sample are representative of the lumber in the kiln, including the drying behavior for the main principle of selection. For the main principle of placement, the sample are spread throughout the kiln at various height and distance from the ends of the lumber stack, and then subjected to the same airflow as the lumber. The advantages are to reduce the grade, to obtain final desired moisture content, to increase drying time, to develop time schedule, and to locate source of trouble that affect the kiln performance. The disadvantage is the handling of the sample require additional operator time. Next, variability of material. To assure good drying in the shortest time, each kiln charge should consist of lumber with similar drying characteristics. There are several variables that should be considered in selecting kiln sample, which are species, thickness, moisture content, hardwood and softwood, and last, grain. Species. Each wood has different physical properties. If mixed species are dried together, then it should be only one from all species. Next, thickness. The thicker the lumber, the longer drying time it takes. So, different thickness cannot be dried together to prevent excessive drying on thin wood. Next, moisture content. Moisture content in the lumber that has been air dried or pre-dried must be considered before put in the kiln drying. And then, hardwood and softwood. Softwood usually dry faster than hardwood. By that, hardwood lumber may not reach the desired final moisture content as soon as softwood. Last, grain. Flat sawn or quarter sawn. Quarter sawn board are generally dry more slowly than flat sawn. Kiln sample should reflect the relative amount of the two grain in a charge. Next, number of kiln sample. The number of kiln sample needed depends on condition and drying characteristic of the wood being dried, the performance of dry kiln, and the final use of the lumber. Kiln sample are used when drying the lumber by moisture content schedule and time-based schedule. Last, placing sample in kiln charge. After kiln samples are cut and coated and weighed, they are placed in the sample basket. Sample baskets are usually placed at several locations along the length of the kiln in the side nearest the wall. Since kiln samples are representative of the lumber being dried, it is important to place the kiln sample in a place that best represents the way the rest of the kiln charge is drying. Thank you.
It is so important to keep the dried timber to be taken care of. It must be protected from the element of water, cold, heat, and ultraviolet light. It must be provided with protective finish. Even the timber that is kept inside is subject to deterioration and stain, so protecting the wood will ensure the project will last for many years. So let's get started with several tips to care for dried timber. First, we must keep the wood in the dry condition because wood is sensitive to moisture. If water penetrates the grain of the wood, it can cause swelling, warping, and stains. Next, we need to create the right environment because wood does not respond well to radical variation in temperature and humidity. The best way to stop the wood from drying and cracking is to create the right environment for it. As for wood furniture, we need to avoid heat or place it as far from the heat sources. After that, we need to avoid the dried timber from direct sunlight because UV radiation will bleach wood and can damage some finishes. Then, we have to protect the wood surfaces from any scratches or other damage using coasters, placemats, or by putting flat bottoms on ornaments and lamps.
Plastic can stick to finishes and cause damage when it is lifted, so particular care needs to be taken when using plastic placemats.
Then, timber dried must be dusted and cleaned regularly because this dust can scratch some timber finishes and leave the timber look dull and worn. Lastly, we need to care product carefully and choose a cleaner that will not damage the wood or the finishes or leave a residue.
Always follow any instruction that you are given by the furniture manufacturer or retailer. Avoid silicone-based polishes because they can attract dust.
Discussion and summary. We may summarize the objective of seasoning timber is it reduces much of the useless weight of timber. Next, seasoning the wood is important to reduce unnecessary weight of timber as it affects the properties of the wood. Next, it is so important and beneficial to the timber industry and for use on construction projects. Kiln drying and air drying. Both methods need to stack and separate the timber to allow the full circulation flow of air. Next, some softwood can use kiln dried, while most of the hardwood and some softwood need to air dry to fiber saturation point. Besides that, wood with lower density is generally dry faster than higher density wood. Last, most wood properties improve and get stronger when they have been dried below the fiber saturation point. Thank you.